Is the Iraqi dinar trapped between the United States and Iran right now? That is the question many long-term holders are asking, and tonight we are going to approach it calmly, clearly, and without hype. This is Iraqi Dinar Intelligence, and as always, we are focusing on structure, institutions, and verified signals, not magic rates, not secret redemption stories, and not emotional predictions. Right now, the conversation around the dinar feels intense. Political headlines are loud. Social media speculation is even louder. But when we step back and look at the institutional framework, a more disciplined picture begins to form. The truth is, the dinar sits at the intersection of politics, banking reform, trade integration, and global finance. Any shift in one of those areas affects the others. Iraq is not a minor player in the global system. It holds significant oil reserves and occupies a strategic position in the Middle East. Its currency is deeply tied to oil revenue, foreign reserves, and access to international banking systems. So when we ask whether the dinar is trapped between the United States and Iran, we are really asking whether geopolitical alignment is influencing monetary policy and financial integration. The answer is nuanced. The United States remains the dominant force in the global dollar system. Most international trade, especially oil transactions, is settled in US dollars. Iraq operates within that dollar-based framework, particularly through its currency auctions and correspondent banking relationships. Iran, on the other hand, maintains regional influence inside Iraq and has strong political and economic connections within certain sectors. However, Iran is under international sanctions, and those sanctions complicate financial relationships tied to Western systems. When tensions rise between Washington and Tehran, risk perception increases. When risk perception increases, global capital becomes cautious. That caution affects banking corridors, correspondent relationships, and liquidity flows. This is how geopolitics influences currency, not through dramatic speeches, but through risk models, compliance frameworks, and institutional decision-making. At the center of Iraq's monetary decisions is the Central Bank of Iraq. It holds the legal authority to set exchange policy, manage reserves, monitor inflation, and stabilize the banking sector. The central bank does not operate based on rumors or online speculation. It operates based on data, reserves, and long-term stability goals. If a monetary adjustment were ever to occur, it would be planned, structured, and communicated in coordination with other institutions. Central banks prioritize credibility above speed. A sudden, unplanned shock to the system risks destabilization, and stability is always the priority. One of the structural markers analysts continue to monitor is Iraq's ongoing effort to join the World Trade Organization. WTO accession is not symbolic. It requires legal reforms, trade transparency, banking modernization, and alignment with international commercial standards. If meaningful progress is made toward accession, it signals that Iraq is aligning its systems with global norms. That alignment increases international confidence. While WTO membership does not automatically trigger a currency revaluation, it strengthens the institutional environment in which monetary normalization becomes more feasible. Another important signal comes from sovereign credit ratings. When rating agencies reaffirm a stable outlook, they are effectively saying that risk is being managed and that the trajectory is not deteriorating. Stable ratings lower borrowing costs and improve investor confidence. They do not promise dramatic change, but they reinforce credibility. And credibility is one of the most important ingredients in any sustainable currency reform. There has also been continued discussion about US banks and potential exchange scenarios. It is important to clarify that no major American bank has publicly announced a mass exchange program tied to a sudden dinar revalue. Banks operate under strict compliance and regulatory oversight. If a large-scale public exchange procedure were to be implemented, it would be documented and formally communicated. Until official documentation appears, stories circulating online should be treated as speculation. If a real monetary normalization were to occur, it would likely involve coordinated communication from the central bank, the finance ministry, and potentially multilateral institutions. Liquidity frameworks would be addressed, banking systems would be prepared, guidelines would be published, The objective would be to maintain stability and prevent panic. It would not be a secret overnight flip. It would be a structured process designed to protect confidence. Domestic banking reform remains another critical piece of the puzzle. Improvements in digital payment systems, anti-money laundering enforcement, correspondent banking relationships, and transparent auditing procedures are foundational elements. These technical reforms may not generate excitement, but they determine whether international partners are comfortable connecting their financial systems with Iraq's. Currency usability depends on trust, and trust depends on compliance and transparency. The broader global monetary environment is also evolving. Discussions about diversified trade settlement systems, regional alliances, and oil pricing frameworks continue to develop. Iraq, as a major oil producer, naturally sits within these conversations. If Iraq strengthens its position as a reliable and transparent energy partner, its currency benefits indirectly from increased relevance in trade networks. Relevance supports stability over time, but these shifts are gradual rather than sudden. For long-term holders, the emotional dimension cannot be ignored. Many have held Dinar for years, some for more than a decade. Waiting creates fatigue. Frustration can build, but emotional reactions are not effective financial strategies. Structural observation is. Watching verified institutional steps provides a more reliable framework than chasing rumors tied to dates or secret processes. There are 3 structural signals worth bookmarking. First, formal exchange policy statements from the central bank. Second, verified milestones related to WTO accession and trade integration. Third, clear backing or coordination from major multilateral financial institutions. If those signals begin appearing in sequence, the probability of meaningful monetary normalization increases. Without them, speculation remains speculation. Political alignment inside Iraq also plays a role. Financial systems assess political risk when determining access to credit lines and dollar-based transactions. Governments that demonstrate compliance with international norms reduce friction. Alignments that raise sanction-related concerns increase scrutiny. This is not a moral judgment. It is simply how global financial architecture operates. It is also necessary to address scams. Periods of uncertainty create opportunity for fraud. Any request for processing fees, private redemption access, or advance payments tied to exchange windows should be treated as a red flag. Legitimate financial institutions do not charge secret unlocking fees for official currency processes. Protecting personal data and working only through reputable channels remains essential. When discussing timelines, conditional thinking is more realistic than date-based predictions. If accession reforms advance, if banking systems strengthen, if political stability holds, and if central bank communication becomes explicit, then a structured normalization could be scheduled within months. If those conditions are delayed, timelines extend. Complexity does not follow emotional calendars. If Iraq's currency were to become more internationally usable, the practical effects could include more efficient trade, potentially lower import costs, stronger investment flows, and improved public finance management. These are gradual economic benefits, not overnight windfalls. Sustainable change is typically incremental. The Dinar story today sits within a complex web of geopolitics, trade reform, banking modernization, and global monetary shifts. That complexity creates uncertainty, but it also creates measurable structural indicators. The key is to focus on documents rather than feelings, policy releases rather than online speculation, and coordinated institutional announcements rather than isolated rumors. As developments unfold, the focus will remain on official central bank statements, verified trade accession steps, political stability indicators, and multilateral coordination. When structural movement becomes verifiable, it will be analyzed carefully and explained clearly. Until then, patience and disciplined observation remain the most rational approach. This is Iraqi Dinar intelligence. Stay steady, stay informed, and continue separating noise from signal.